Been together so long we can't pretend. Remember the way we used to move, dance all night like young lovers do. Your heart is changing. Now we don't dance like we used to. Silent disco on the floor, baby. Mr. DJ, he'll get me through. When the beat's gone, you can't save me, baby.
This is Broad Radio. For you, by you. Broad Radio. Here for more.
Hello and welcome to Broad Radio. My name's Shelley Ware and I am joined today by author, amazing mum and comedian Nelly Thomas.
Oh, hello, Shelley. Someone's missing though.
I know someone is missing, our beautiful Jo Stanley.
Yeah.
She has COVID, unfortunately, but is doing really, really well.
Yeah.
And I said, do it from home, Jo.
Yeah.
And then she reminded me that when we're sick, we take the time off. So we hope that you're
do.
doing really well and that you're healing well, Jo. But one of the long-term goals of Broad Radio is that there will be many more shows and that we will have many more hosts and co-hosts. So this is essentially just an example of what can come ahead.
Exactly. And it's also an example of what the times that we're living in. I'm sure you know many people who've had coronavirus by now, as have I. Has it hit your household?
We haven't had it in our home yet, touch wood.
Yeah, touch wood, me either. We'll see.
But the numbers are certainly growing. So we hope here at Broad Radio, if you do get COVID, that you do stay home and rest.
That's right. Take the
Exactly
time
right.
off.
That's right. Just like our Jo. So coming up, we are going to be talking to AFLW. We're going to be talking AFLW with Nicole Livingstone, who is the GM of AFL Women's Football. So we're looking forward to that and getting an insight into her amazing career that she's had.
Phenomenal woman.
Yep, absolutely. And the whole of Australia has been absolutely devastated by the floods that have happened in Queensland and New South Wales, and we will have joining us writer and filmmaker Megan Broberg. So she's going to join us. She's lost everything, Nelly, absolutely everything. She's living in a caravan with her dog Bruce. So we want to know what's going on up there, how we can help, and how she is going. So that's something to look forward to. And after all that, we're going to need a good laugh.
Yes.
So we have musician Jude Perl who will be joining us, and that's coming up after this.
Broad Radio is proudly supported by Chemist Warehouse. Chemist Warehouse, great savings every day.
So if you're watching, please make sure that you comment on socials, and we would love to read out your comments. And of course, if you missed this episode and you want to catch up, you can catch us on Podcast on the Go. Anywhere that you get your podcasts, we'll be there.
Geez, we're
waiting for you to
needy, aren't we?
listen. Very, very needy.
Seriously, if you don't comment and like and subscribe, we just sit here going, we're talking into the ether.
Yep,
Hello,
that's it.
bit of feedback.
So give us some feedback. We'd absolutely love it. So I'm a big fan of the AFLW and I'm looking forward to catching up with Nicole. But what I love about AFLW is that I love seeing people live their dreams. You know, it's been a long time. Women have been playing football for such a long time, but it's finally up on the big stage. What do you love about footy?
I was a BMX champion, Shelley.
So was my brother. I love that.
Well, in the 80s.
Yes, of
So
course.
I was a under 13s, I'm bragging now, under 13 state girls champion. But of course, like many of the women in the AFLW, I had to ride against boys when I started. And that is a whole different kind of scenario. You don't feel included, frankly. So I think the thing I love, I'm not a massive footy fan, I'll confess, but the thing I love about AFLW is that the women and girls have the opportunity to be in their competition on their terms. And I do love, as a mum of daughters, do you remember that ad? I'm a
Yes.
single
Yeah,
mother with
yes.
a daughter. As a mum of daughters, I do love that they can see those women succeeding.
Oh, it's the best. And I love that children are all saying their favourite players now.
Absolutely.
AFLW players.
Boys included.
boys
I know a lot
very,
of boys who
very much.
love the AFLW.
Very, very much.
Yeah.
So we are going to get into the show. The AFL has exploded since its inception in 2017, and it has gone from strength to strength, which has been wonderful to see. But we are thrilled to welcome here to Broad Radio Nicole Livingstone, who is a former Olympic swimmer and GM of AFLW.
Yay!
Nicole, how are you?
Coming through a bit pixelated, which probably reflects my voice and a Tuesday after a public holiday.
Yes,
So,
you've had a big one, have you?
Yes, on a public holiday.
Well,
No, I'm redoing the front yard, so a big one of manual labour.
Right.
oh, good on you. Oh, good on
That's
you.
very wholesome.
So it's an exciting time in AFLW. You are going into your sixth final series. It's very exciting. What do you think you're the most proudest about this?
Well, this year in particular, getting a season delivered, and we've pulled all stops out to get this season delivered after we've publicly stated that 2020 was a huge disappointment for everybody not being able to deliver a premiere. So, we delayed the season to January because we had Delta on the scene with COVID, and then after we'd made those announcements, we had a thing called Omicron come on board. So to actually navigate through COVID and protect our players, protect our people, and deliver some joy to the nation with AFLW, I think is what I'm most proud of.
And Nicole, there's been a lot of commentary about, I guess, the difficulty of playing in the summer. How do you think the players have dealt with that?
We're into our sixth season, and we've always played in summer. So I'm not sure if the broadcasters are a little more uncomfortable, perhaps sitting boundary side with the heat this year more than other years. But essentially, we started this year 4 weeks earlier. So, I've spoken to players who actually have said, I don't want to play in the winter. I like the summer sweat. So, I think trying to make sure from our point of view that we find the best time for AFLW to build and grow an audience. And I think that's the thing for all women's sport. We need to rise this tide together. We've got men's sport that's been around for a very long time that brings great commerciality to it, great broadcast contracts. And, women's sport, you look at something like the WNBA that's been around for 25 years and it's still trying to find its feet after 25 years and has a very big shadow cast from the NBA. So for us to try and find the best time to play AFLW that capitalises on a one sport concept where people are just watching their footy teams. They're not necessarily seeing women or men playing. They're tribal and they're out there wanting their team to have a win. So they're the current discussions that we've got going with AFLW.
So is that what the AFL was thinking about with changing the starting time to August?
So we haven't determined it yet. I mean, we've had a green light from the Commission to be able to do further work on the processes and procedures that need to take place, because obviously we've got everything timed out for a December start. So things would need to be moved earlier, including a draft. So there's a bit of work to be done on that. But we've been working on this for a little while now, speaking to the industry. And the industry is actually challenging us to be bold. And if we are looking at finding a time that complements also the AFL audience, the men's game, then, be bold and pull out all stops to get it to happen in season 7 so that we don't lose momentum with AFLW season 7. Even in talking about, should we contemplate it for season 8, some of the terminology that was around it was treading water or stopgap season or, and those kind of phrases, I think devalues AFLW. So, if we're going to do it, we need to be bold. We need to strap in for what will be, a quick turnaround. It won't be easy, but the benefit of that is once we hit December, everybody gets December, January off, including AFLW players. And if you talk to them, they're talking about, having to watch what they're eating on Christmas Day. Nobody wants to do that. Thinking about going for a run Christmas night or, Boxing Day instead of running through the sales. So to actually spend time with your family and friends and have a proper break over Christmas, New Year, I think quite enticing.
And Nicole, and I'll direct this to you as well, Shelley, because I feel like a bit of an outsider looking in, and this might be a really stupid question, but you know how they say there's no stupid questions?
No stupid questions.
What I don't understand is what would be the problem with the AFLW and the AFLM playing at the same time? So could you not have, if you're a Collingwood fan, for example, couldn't you watch the women play and the men play on the same day with the same crowd?
What are your thoughts there?
First, Shelley? You know I've got an answer.
You're the guest. You're the guest. You go for it.
So that would be utopia. Utopia doesn't exist at the moment, with 34% of venues, football venues across our nation being deemed as female friendly. That's risen from 28% to 34% in the last 10 years of work that we've done. And if you think about the big venues, there are very few big venues that can actually host a men's and women's team at the same time, or a double header. Never a curtain raiser, just to educate everybody. A curtain raiser has a connotation that we are a secondary act. So to have a double header with AFLM is difficult. And what I want to protect is that our AFLW players are not compromising their preparation by having smaller change rooms, by having smaller preparation rooms.
So Nicole, can I just ask, when you say, because again, as an outsider, I go, okay, MCG, SCG, wherever, you know, these big sporting venues, can they literally not accommodate just on a change room level the men's teams and the women's teams? Is that the barrier?
They can. Well, they can, but it's a small. The secondary change rooms are smaller change rooms. So
the men can have that.
They can have that. Well,
equity or equality. Well, I mean, there's not enough warm-up areas either. The other thing to consider too is that the smallest gap that we can have between a men's and women's game is around 2 hours 50 in this COVID world. So it's not as simple as buy one ticket, you come and watch a men's and a women's game. You actually have a massive gap in between there, because venues need to be cleaned, change rooms need to be cleaned. So it's not as easy as just going, let's just put all the men's and women's teams playing at the same time.
But that is the aim eventually. Is that what we're building to?
No, the aim is to have AFLW thriving and humming and having an audience that assists with the commerciality of AFLW. So, you know, really building that audience, and the thought process around the August timeframe is that, you know, to run alongside the men's finals where there are less games on, 10 teams have exited the building, so to speak. Their fans are still looking for football content because they feel ripped off that their teams aren't playing. And then there are more broadcast slots because of those less games, 5 less games during finals in the first week. And then we can come out the other side. And, you know, there's spring racing carnival. So it's also about finding the right time to be able to build that audience, to be able to build the amount of people that are coming to games, to be able to watch games as well. Because it needs to actually, unfortunately, we're judged on these traditional metrics of attendances and audiences. There's no doubt that women's football is doing so much more than just AFLW. If you look at 600,000 women and girls playing Australian football, community clubs being revitalised by a new volunteer base of women coming to clubs like never before, not to mention things like, you know, the health benefits or the strong connection between a reduction of violence against families and women by showing respect to women in you know, a football scenario in the community. So we're not judged on that yet. And I think there probably for all women's sport needs to be, maybe through Sport Australia, some assistance with coming up with those metrics that actually shows the value that's more than just bums on seats or eyes on the screen.
Yeah, we certainly noticed a lack of crowd in the January, and I think that had a lot to do with even myself personally needing to go on a family holiday. And I think that's what the change of time will actually give back to these players as well, that there'll be that better balance. And it's always going to be very difficult making that change because they have just come off a season and then they're going to go bang into another season. So the AFL, I imagine, would be very much considering, you know, that these women also have work that they've just taken holidays from because they're semi-professional players, and there's just so much to consider, isn't there, Nicole?
Yeah, there is. And, you know, you think about 3.5 months or 2.5 months, if you make it through to the grand final, I think any player would sacrifice an extra month of playing to win a grand final. You have to be starting to contemplate what does it look like for an individual player preparation plan. You think about someone like the Melbourne Storm, who protected Cameron Smith and Billy Slater for years of not doing that hard December work that the new rookies did, and only brought them back in January because they had the kilometres in their legs and they didn't need to, break down in pre-season. So we've now got players that have done 6 years of AFLW, and some of them are saying, this will be fantastic. It's a 2-for-1. Whilst I might have been contemplating retiring, I now get another season in there. So, we do need to be more mature in the way that we're looking at each and every player on our 30-player list in terms of what their individual preparation plans might look like. They'll come in off a better base because they won't have that 6 months of off-season. So we just need to be smart in the way that we're preparing them.
It's a funny one too, I think. An old kind of thing that I learnt in, feminist spaces is to just ask the question, if you reverse this situation, how would everyone feel? If the men were having to argue for pay equity, if they were having to argue for change room spaces, if we were debating in March when the start of their season would be, would we find this acceptable? And we wouldn't. We wouldn't find it acceptable. And that shows we've got a little way to go.
It's an interesting environment that we operate in, because we also need to acknowledge that the men's game's been around for 160 years. We've been around for 6 years. So, yes, we have a long way to go. But if you look at the progress that we've made from 6 years ago, not having any competition, to in 2022 having $11 million in player payments that goes to players, 420 women as the biggest employers of female athletes in the nation, soon to be 540. There is so much that we can celebrate. My fear is, as we push for more, which we should be pushing for more, is that we actually lose the joy in what we're doing, and we lose the celebration of how far we have actually come. So, the men have fought for better pay. I mean, that played out in the 1990s as they transitioned from amateur athletes to full-time athletes. So that's the place that we're in now. But we're also in an environment where women's rights and women's, the equality and the equity space is being debated and spoken about like never before. So trust me, from my perspective, it's a really interesting space to be working in and find that balance.
I hope they step up.
Yes, me too. Keep fighting and keep finding the joy is what I take out of that for sure. So let's talk to you as a person and an athlete. You're quite impressive with your being an Olympian as a teenager, straight into broadcast, and here you are now as the GM of AFLW. Resilience must play a huge role in who you are as a person. What how did you do that? How are you so resilient?
Who are you?
And who
What
are you?
happened?
And in this high-pressured environment, what are some of the advice you have for people about high-pressure environments and
where does that
resilience?
drive come from? Yeah.
I think the first thing is that this balance that we all crave, I think, is bullshit. It's really difficult. It's difficult to be able to have balance. You missed in there. I've got 3 kids as well, so I've got a 14-year-old boy coming out of living in COVID in the world's most lockdown city. That he's in year 9, and has basically been at high school for 2 or 3 terms. This whole secondary school life that he's had. So, trying to balance work and family, and I have to say the AFL is so very supportive of me as a working mum and working parents. I feel incredibly blessed to be able to work for the AFL and be supported. I've always had instilled in me from my mum that I need to have financial independence. To be able to make sure that I've got myself in a position to be able to work and be able to not only support myself but my family as well is really important to me, which is why I've always had these parallel careers going on. When I was swimming, I was working. So I was doing 30 hours a week in the pool, but also working another 20 plus hours for Australia Post in corporate public affairs, and then moved straight into broadcast whilst I was also swimming as well. So I've always had, these parallel careers to make sure that I was able to continue to look after myself and my family. So when broadcast started to slow down in my 40s, where women are no longer revered for their experience or their wealth of information, or how they perform on air, they're more judged by how they look or their age. I recognised that I wasn't going to continue to work too much in the media space, so started to move into sports administration at the same time. So, and then was able to push harder into sports administration when TV fell away.
Well, and not here, Nicole and Shelley, can I say? I think that's part of Joe's vision for setting up Broad Radio, is to acknowledge, I mean, I feel like I didn't know anything till I was 40.
Oh, 100%.
No disrespect to younger women. Nicole, I saw a meme for International Women's Day that just reminded me of what you were saying about your mum's advice. There was a woman, when she got married, her husband basically said, I don't think you need to buy those biscuits or something like that. And she said, that's the day I went and got a job. 100%. I want to determine what I choose to spend my money on. And, in my case, as someone who's fairly recently separated after a really long relationship, it's very important to have that financial independence, to have that, so you're not left destitute.
Yep, so important. And it's great that your mum...
and with that is... Mum was a chef and worked. She had me at 38, turning 39. Back in the 70s, that was quite late. But she ran Metropolitan Golf Club in Victoria, which had international golfing events, and in terms of the kitchen, I should say, she ran Australian Opens. I walked the course, with Greg Norman playing as a young girl. So she worked all her life and instilled that in me as well. When my twins were born premature at 33 weeks. I was back on poolside working, commentating before their gestation of 40 weeks, had occurred. So, I've always worked hard all my life, and I am looking for a rest sometime soon. But there's so much to do, and I still love the job that I do with the AFL. We've got so much to do. We released recently our 2030 AFL women's football vision, and we're now working through the roadmap on that, and we've been able to bring people into the business to be able to help with that. So there's so much left to do, and it's pretty exciting.
And some people have to keep moving,
yes,
don't they? You strike me as one of those. You've got like a shark in the best possible way. If you stop, it doesn't work out.
That's true. Before you leave, I really want you to tell us about... You've been talking about your mum and what a wonderful person she was, but she sadly did pass away from ovarian cancer. So can you tell us about the organisation that you and your sister started up, please?
Yeah, my sister Karen and myself and three others. One of them was Linda Gibson. Unfortunately, Linda passed away from ovarian cancer. We founded Ovarian Cancer Australia because we were outraged that really no information was around about ovarian cancer. And when Mum was diagnosed in 2001, we had no idea about it. And at that stage, you were seeing breast cancer and the information really come to the fore, and a real difference in the diagnosis and survival of women with breast cancer. There's no detection test for ovarian cancer. Sadly, too many women die each and every year. Well over 3,000 women are affected each and every year. And it's more often than not discovered quite late in its stage because it's a silent killer. A lot of the symptoms that we tell you that, are the jigsaw pieces are symptoms that we have each and every day, feeling a full indigestion, back pain, needing to urinate frequently, pain during sex, all of these things are things that we can experience from time to time. But what we say is that if it is not normal and it's continuing over a period of time, of more than 2 weeks, then please go to your doctor and ask, could it be my ovaries? You can see ovariancancer.net.au. There's a symptom tracker that you can download to be able to track your symptoms. So, and lots of other information, including support groups, not only for women. We've moved into research. We're funding ovarian cancer nurses now. So we're exceptionally proud that in our 20th year, the teal ribbon organisation, Ovarian Cancer Australia, is saving lives.
And I remember Gibbo saying, because she was at my first ever stand-up gig, and I've actually done a couple of gigs for your organisation, I remember her saying, you don't take no for an answer. If you go to the GP and they say, no, that's just normal, people get diarrhoea, people have pain during it. No, I want to be checked. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
it's such a common theme for
women. Be a bad patient.
Yep.
so-called.
Yeah, and there is a genetic link as well between ovarian cancer and breast cancer as well. That's only a small percentage, BRCA1 and BRCA2. I have BRCA2, so I no longer have ovaries, and that's my mum's gift to me. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a lasting.
What an astounding
Yeah,
woman.
thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole. It's been an absolute pleasure. We look forward to some footy finals and keep working hard there inside.
Keep fighting the good fight.
And if you want to see anything about AFLW, it's women's.afl is where you find all the information.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Well, it has been just over 2 weeks that we've seen these tragic floods in Queensland and northern New South Wales. And people have lost their homes. Nelly, they've lost absolutely everything. For some people, total devastation. And we've had 22 people that have actually lost their lives. It has been really hard for people watching from afar, but we can't even imagine what it's like to be there at the front of it. So our next guest is here to talk to us. We have Megan Broberg from the town of northern New South Wales in Ware. Welcome, Megan.
Thank you so much.
Hey,
Thanks for
Megan.
So what was it like when the flooding started, Megan?
It was funny because it started the whole experience started quite slowly. Like obviously the tragedy had already unfolded in Lismore, and they were under 14 metres of rainwater at that time. And I got an alert probably, I think it was the Tuesday evening, and it was just an evacuation order. But the town seemed like just quite quiet and quite calm about it all. And that sort of evening, I went over and spoke to a couple of locals because I live right in the centre of town. That's my bank there that I used to live in. And they were all like, oh, look, we're going to wait. So everyone talks about the 74 flood, which was the last really big one. And the Wardell's never really flooded. And the water in 74 only sort of got up to the door and sort of the bottom of the pub, which is on the river. So I thought I'll trust the wisdom of the old folks and I'd stick around too. But by the following morning, the water had already sort of come up the road. In fact, the night before, I got up at about 1 o'clock. And the river had turned into, it looked like a tsunami. You know, the sound was so incredibly loud. It was roaring, and that's when I started to see bits of debris and houses and stuff coming down. And I still waited it out. I'd sandbagged the front of my house. And then by 6 a.m. the next morning, I had to get out, like the water was coming up. And the only way to sandbag the back door was for me to leave. So I'd already had a friend from further down in town staying with me. She'd already flooded. So we left, and we just sort of, I'd already the night before packed a getaway car with one small suitcase and, you know, and parked up the hill so it wouldn't be anywhere near the encroaching water. And, you know, like, I wish I'd put more stuff in it. I just didn't know it would get as bad as it eventually got. But, you know, the fact is, the Richmond River where we were, like that 14 metres of floodwater from Lismore and Casino and everything had to go somewhere, and it had to go via the river out to the ocean. So that's why everyone from Wardell, Woodburn, Broadwater, all the way through to Ballina were completely overwhelmed and inundated. And it was a different experience for us because it had stopped raining. It was these 2 perfectly sunny days, and the water just slowly,
and it can just come,
came up, and next, you know, by the afternoon, my place was under like 2.5 metres of water, and that
Megan,
was Wednesday.
I wonder, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, and it's a strange analogy in a way, but, you know, obviously in Melbourne we've lived through this couple of years of weeks and months at a time of lockdown, and I think a lot of us felt like people in other parts of the country just didn't have any understanding of what we're going through. And watching the footage of the floods the other day, I thought, well, I can't really understand that either. You know, I mean, I can try, but I can't really understand the devastation that you're experiencing.
Yeah, and I felt the same way. Even watching the footage of my own event that I was in, I'm like, I'm that person who looks at the news and sees it all happen. You're like, oh, that's sad, that's bad. But being there at the coalface in the middle of it and also the panic of the rescue as well, because no one in our town really believed it would get as bad as this. Lots of the older people didn't evacuate. So then, there's one stage where I'm with a couple of guys, like wading through like waist deep water, these small units to help where a lot of retired older people live, to help them out because they didn't leave until it's basically too late. And it's, surreal, such an overused word. It didn't feel real at all. And the initial experience is so overwhelming, but you also feel you just have like a job to do and help people, because there was no help. And I think that's what, was quite shocking about the experience. I'm standing there. I was there all day as the floods got worse and worse. And I'm thinking, where
is everyone?
Us? Like, no emergency services. And look, the SES, I used to be a part of the SES in the Blue Mountains. They're a volunteer organisation. There's limited membership. It's also, that's what other people don't realise. Like, I did 2 training modules with the SES just to do storm rescue, which is taping up people's front yards and learning how to use a chainsaw. To do the flood module, it's 6 to 12 months of training. A lot of the SES are older people and retirees. And of course, I mean this with no disrespect at all, but you need to be quite physically capable and very fit to do the flood rescue stuff. So even within the SES, there's a very small amount of people that are actually qualified.
And it shouldn't be all down to them. No. I mean, it's simply not fair. Yeah,
it shouldn't be volunteers. And so that's through most of the day. You'd see there was all you could see is just private citizens in their boats going up the river. So Woodburn and Broadwater were absolutely inundated. And the people with jet skis, and when you're at a beach and you see someone drowning, you don't go and help them because you might also drown. You get the surf lifesavers. So these private citizens put themselves in the most dangerous situation.
It felt like from here it was like watching in another country, don't you think?
It was, but I think what we saw was exactly what you're talking about, Megan, was that it was the citizens that stepped up. It was the community that helped each other and got the old people out.
Yeah.
We will literally be forever indebted to these brave people that actually did this, untrained.
Yeah. I was up on the bridge at Wardell, and I saw this young couple who were just going up and down in their flat bottom boat, and they had a couple with them that they'd rescued off the roof in Broadwater. And the waters came through so quickly there, they had nothing but 2 garbage bags of clothes that they managed to take with them. And they shoved their cat in an esky. And so they didn't know until we got off the boat if the cat was even alive. So they got off the boat, got this way, trying to open it. The little cat pokes its head out. And then a guy with an NRMA truck who's been shuttling people out of Broadwater where he can. And he's been working with that boat, and grabbed them once they got out of the boat, got them to safety, and the guys went in this boat back up the river. And this is the same time that, this is I don't think I'll ever get over this. These hundreds of livestock coming down the river, alive, right? So that's being swept away from Casino and the farms up there, crying out for their lives, Wasn't not much of a meat eater, but I'm certainly not going to now. And we managed to get a few of them on the shore in Wardell, but not enough. And I know there was
very traumatizing.
Very traumatizing, and so many elements that we will simply never understand. And we're so sorry for the people that have had to go through it, and of course the wildlife and the livestock that has had to as well,
and the psychological effects because I think, I'm sure you're the same, Shelley. Like watching people, you're the Mick Fannings, and I mean he's the famous one, but plenty of just everyday people rescuing people is beautiful and gives me faith in humanity, but it also enrages me because they should not have to be in that position and they're not trained to do it, and they're putting themselves in danger. Where is the government? Where are the authorities? Why did it take a week? For help to arrive in so many places. It's not right in a country like ours. It's not.
No, nothing about that was okay. But you did manage to get Bruce out. Tell us about Bruce.
Yeah, I shuffled him out early as possible, and he was just great. He's such a he's, I'm reluctant to say he's a chill dude. He's a border collie kelpie, but he's happy to sit in the car and trot around town and
look at his little face.
He's been wonderful. But even I always feel a bit silly when I say this, but he's really traumatized by this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I sound so stupid, but I didn't want him to see the house when I managed to finally get back in there. I just didn't. And he got a bit scared when we pulled all of the debris and everything out of the house, and he got a bit scared from a digger and ran back in there and scratched himself up. But then he was running around the house, slipping around the mud, like running into each room, looking for his bed, looking for his home, and it wasn't there. And he was so upset. I was really quite like overwhelmed by his reaction to it. And he's covered in, river mud and
animals don't dissociate. What you described before about it felt like surreal and, it wasn't like I was watching. That's because humans have the capacity to dissociate and cope. Animals are just present and feeling it, and then you can't help but feel their feelings. Do you know that bushfire ad that we have where they have to leave the dog behind?
Oh, yes.
Honestly, I can't even watch it.
No, my husband has commented on
Oh,
it.
I wouldn't be
able to either.
It's just so horrendous. But I'm so glad you got Bruce out, and that must be giving you some comfort, I imagine.
Yeah. It's funny you say about them knowing as well. The night before, doesn't have separation anxiety. I was just packing the bag, and every time I'd leave the house, he would howl. And this is when the water just started to get a little bit rougher coming down the river, and the birds and these bats in the tree in front of my house were all behaving really weirdly and leaving. It was very strange that every animal seemed to know what was about to happen.
And they're signalling.
Yes, they're definitely signalling. 100%. So, Nelly, you touched on it, that the government hasn't helped as much as we can. We have seen civilians doing things that are just heroic beyond words, and I don't even think there's going to be enough medals to go around.
No.
Like, it's been absolutely stunning. But what can we do to help from here watching?
Look, I think I was reading a couple of local people today. One thing that just from the government point of view is I think we're all just getting really sick of hearing whose fault it was. And like, well, okay, well, let's acknowledge or the ADF don't do this or whatever. It's like, just shut up and do something, okay? Like that's where we're at now. Like, I don't care if the state government should have triggered the bloody constitutional request for the ADF to do this, to do that. We don't care about the machinations.
Stop talking.
State and federal government.
Do something.
Get on the bloody phone to each other and do something. And Reese, like, just as I was driving around yesterday, and the ADF, they are there now, and this is still very valuable help that they're giving, but they're doing all of they've got these big trucks in there and they're collecting garbage and they're taking it to the quarries and where they're getting rid of it all. And that, to me, it's like, these men and women are so skilled. Like, where we needed them was in the rescue. That's where their skills are amazing. We don't need them
and carrying old people out.
They're being garbage collectors. Like, they're helping. That, like, they're being really helpful. But I think there's two things that the Red Cross have obviously done the huge telethon and appeal, and I think the Red Cross is a great place to start if you want to help. Lots of small community pages, like I know Wardell Community Connect, they're still really looking after themselves there. They've set up the town hall, they're taking donations for people to go in, and so lots of the small towns and local governments are doing this. So that's probably a good place to start. Look at the LGAs that have been affected, and you'll find community groups who, if you're not in a position to donate money, then lots of things are needed, particularly household items now. So a lot of people don't have beds. There's over 3,000 homeless people there now. The Northern River's already had a housing crisis, and it's going to be catastrophic. I think the other thing that I really want, and part of the reason that I wanted to do this is we've dropped off the news cycle. It's like it didn't happen, and I know there's a lot of other really catastrophic world events at the moment, but like, last week I was getting so upset. Like, there's no doubt, like, the untimely and tragic death of Shane Warne is a terrible thing. But the fact that was the front page of every newspaper for the past week, I mean, it's just, first of all, disrespectful to his family to sensationalise that. And we feel really forgotten. And I said this to someone yesterday. It feels like, when someone dies close to you, everyone's there after the person dies and up till the funeral, and then everyone goes back to normal life. Well, that's where we are at the moment. Like, the initial adrenaline and community spirit and all the excitement, I don't use that positively, but the initial event has now passed, and we're still there.
And now you need the help.
Sure do.
Yeah, and this is where we need the help and the attention. And it's
I
almost
think we can, Megan, we'll just remind our listeners and viewers, I think, that we can donate, but also maybe even on our social media and other things, we keep it in the news.
Keep it in the
Yeah.
news, and thank you so much, Megan, for sharing your story with us, which does allow us to keep it in the news. We wish you all the best, and we will certainly get those donations in for you. And if you're close by and you're able to drive there, drop off some household items, go around your house. I mean, my house, it's forever. There's something that I can do. So thank you very much, Megan, and you take care.
Thanks, Megan.
Thanks a lot.
So I also work for the Courier Mail, and they've got a fundraiser page, a GoFundMe page, which I know will be 100% going to the people who don't have insurance, and so making their homes again. So if you are looking for a page as well, that you can go to the GoFundMe page at Bunjala, which is the Courier Mail GoFundMe page, and they're doing a brilliant job there.
Well, and Shell, just very quickly on that note, I think it is important too when you are donating, just to make sure you know where you're donating. You know, 100%. That it's, just check that out.
Australians know that sun exposure can cause skin cancer, but dermatologists also know that it can cause wrinkles, pigmentation and age spots. That's why you need sunscreen every day. Ask your Chemist Warehouse pharmacist which sunscreen is right for your skin.
Broad Radio. Talking inspo we love, info we need, and sharing more of us. Watch and listen live every Tuesday 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time at broadradio.com.au, or find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and LinkedIn at Broad Radio Oz. Talk to us live. Call on 1300 8 Broad. Catch up on demand anytime, anywhere, every time, everywhere. On the train, we'll be here. 2 a.m. existential crisis? We've got you covered. Broad Radio. Here for more.
So one of the things we love here at Broad Radio is that it is women of all walks of life connecting and sharing their stories. And one of the things our listeners might not know is that I'm a teacher and you're a teacher.
Well, kind of. You're a proper teacher, yes.
Proper teacher. 25 years in the industry.
Yes.
I sent my son back after our homeschooling experience here in Victoria, but you've actually kept one of your children at home and you're homeschooling. How's that going?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Interesting, in inverted commas. So, long story short, she is a beautiful neurodiverse young woman. She's 9. She's autistic. During lockdowns, she thrived. I mean, I certainly didn't, and I don't know anyone else who did, but she had always struggled, as I'm sure you'd understand as an educator, in mainstream environments, and we kept trying different things and advocating and changing schools, and the school she was at, to their credit, did everything they could.
Oh, good.
But those environments, in my view, are just not built for kids like mine.
Agree.
And I couldn't ignore it. In lockdown, she went from, I never share much personal information about her, but for example, she went from struggling to read to now reading chapter books.
Oh, wonderful. Then you are a teacher, my dear.
Either I'm an excellent teacher or she's doing better in a more quiet, predictable,
the sensory
loving environment,
Yeah, being able to control the sensory overload is a really powerful thing for children.
Also the social stuff. I think for particularly a lot of autistic kids, the playground looms large.
Sure does.
So, she's doing really well. Yeah,
well
I'm trying my best, Shell. I'm trying.
I'm
learning a lot.
I
this
bet.
is what I think is really interesting. I loved school, but there were many things obviously I didn't learn. And going back, I'm learning this stuff again. It's really interesting.
Love it. Now, I'm currently doing teaching where I'm actually helping teachers out. So I'm writing curriculum with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander history and culture, and making sure that, like yourself, are well supported. And one of the things I've been writing is these teacher notes for ceremony, the new Adam Goods book.
Amazing.
But we also did some parent and carer notes as well.
Yeah.
So
can you just send them to me, please?
I sure will.
Thank
so there's
you.
a lot out there. We're actually acknowledging that this is a part of the norm now, that parents are wanting to do this too. So I'm really, really pleased to be a part of that.
Can I say, because I think homeschooling is very different to remote learning.
Yes.
So remote learning got a really bad rap, and I get that. We hated remote learning. But one of the benefits of homeschooling, say on International Women's Day, my daughter had found out that Florence Nightingale, there was the equivalent of a Florence Nightingale who was a black English woman that none of us know about, who did exactly the same things as Florence Nightingale. Yep. In a homeschool situation, you can go, let's learn about her.
Love that. Love it. But I also loved my long weekend too. Tell me about yours.
Honestly, I had one of the best weekends I reckon I've had in a couple of decades.
Oh, good.
That's a big call.
Big call.
Big call. I went to the Chill Out Festival in Dalesford, which is a LGBTQIA plus festival, very inclusive, beautiful, lots of things on, like a bus going around between barbecues and discos and parades. And I mean, I know it's a stereotype show, but I do love a gay man. And a gay man loves me.
Beautiful.
And I'm walking down the street. Oh, aren't you adorable? You know, it was good for my ego. You know what I'm saying?
You'll be back next year, is that what you're saying?
I will be back every year. I had such and nice to be out.
Oh, it was so nice to be out.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
What did you do?
I headed off to Bright with my family in the caravan, and we went to the Brighter Days Festival, which is a festival that raises awareness of a skin disease, short EB, which just takes too many children's lives. And it's one of those things, like
I've
what
never
Nicole
heard
was
of it.
talking
What is
about,
EB?
hasn't been. Now I'm going to try my best here. Dystrophic epidermolysis bullosa. Because I'm dyslexic, so I just made that
let
last
me try. Dystrophic epidermolysis bullosa.
There you go.
A
That's
rare
probably
skin
better.
disease. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a rare skin where
That's fatal.
the child blisters and it ends up being fatal. And
Wow.
three beautiful souls were taken last year. So it's a collection of volunteers who put this amazing festival together of Australian music. You know, it was John Stevens was up there and kids were on
Beautiful.
shoulders, and John Stevens yelled out to everyone, best parenting ever.
Yeah.
You've got your kids here listening to Australian music. You know, it was
Wonderful.
wonderful.
So nice. I watched Kylie Oldest. She was one of the performers at Chill Out. And again, it was beautiful weather. So it was a lovely outdoor event, live music, Australian performer. You know, when you're at some events and they just have a collectively positive vibe.
Yes.
Like everyone was lifted up. If there was someone sitting on their own, and I mean this literally, you'd see someone go over and go, come dance with me.
Let's go.
You know, it was
Beautiful.
just beautiful. I had the best time.
I had a dad, I took a photo of a son and dad together, and he said, we're connecting with the joy again. So that was pretty special.
Oh, don't. That'll make me cry. Can I tell you one quick story about Chill Out, though? Geez, it was funny. They have a shuttle bus. So I went with two of my friends, and we might have had a couple of drinks, right? And
Fair
they
enough.
decided to go home early, and they get on the bus. About an hour and a half later, I go to get the bus as it's going round. They were still on the bus,
Don't.
Shelley. And I'm like, what are you doing? They're screaming. And everyone else is screaming. I said, what are you doing? They're like, it won't stop, Nelly. It won't stop. Because the bus driver had obviously been contracted. It's not a normal thing that he does. And he just kept missing their stop. So they were just doing bog laps of Dalesford. Oh,
I
it was
hope
the
they had
funniest
fun.
thing. They did. They had a great time.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
good. You can always make your own fun.
Yeah.
Well, the world certainly has been hard to bear in the last few weeks, and so many people need a good laugh, and that's what we're hoping we can bring to this segment here. And we have a beautifully talented and amazing comedian, musician joining us now, Jude Perl.
Jude
Welcome.
Perl. She's the best. Chuck out the rest. Amazing. I think I met you, Jude, probably, 5 years ago or something at another radio station. And
was that Triple R?
I think it was at Triple R. And I distinctly remember thinking, because, you know, obviously in our industry you meet a lot of people, but I remember just thinking, oh, this one's special. This one's very special.
Stop.
No, I won't stop. I'm lifting you up is what I'm doing.
That's nice.
Well, I have heard the song you're about to sing for us, and it is pretty special.
Okay.
Before we get into the song, what have you been up to lately?
Well, I've just been getting back into, doing shows and talking to the outside world again, which is good.
Yeah.
It's good. And I'm trying to just get back to the level of social awkwardness I had pre-pandemic.
Love
it. So, which it shouldn't be a hard goal, but it turns
can
out
be.
it is for me.
It
So,
certainly
yeah.
is. Now, the new album that you have out at the moment is Participation Award. I have
Yes.
very strong feelings about Participation
Oh,
Award.
do share.
Very
Firm
strong.
views.
Firm
You're
views.
against or for?
Against. Should not be.
Oh,
So, yeah.
interesting.
They go straight
We're
in the
going to
bin
fight
at our
about that
house.
later.
Straight
Yeah,
in the
they're
bin.
I do enjoy. I think everyone has a very strong feeling about participation awards, which I didn't realize until
You wrote a show
I did
about it.
The show, yeah. But I absolutely can see both sides. I can.
Did
see
you
both
win
sides
any awards
of
at
them.
school, Jude?
Just
Just the participation award. Okay.
I have a not this. I don't know if this is I should be saying this, but in that photo, my album cover where I'm holding the award up, technically that's actually what I'm holding is an encouragement award. It isn't a participation award. It's an encouragement award, which I think is the same thing. It was for chess. It was. For
I love
club.
an encouragement award.
Yeah.
I'm good for that.
You don't want reward to just show
I'm not
up.
good for turning up. Just rocking up and
Okay.
getting an award.
Right.
That I don't do.
Yeah.
Sure.
Do you know what? I'll tell you, because she's a comedian and would have been part of the Broad Radio team, beautiful Stella Young, who I'm sure you both know, her mum, I remember telling me a story. Stella got given a participation award from school and she came home with it and her mum's like, well, what'd you get it for? And she's like, oh, because I, was there. And her mum marched her back up, this, child with a disability, marched her back up to school and said, you give her an award when she achieves something and not before. This is patronising. And that's always stayed in my mind where I thought maybe that's why Stella was such a high achiever, because her parents wouldn't accept that. I don't know.
I don't accept it either. But anywho, we're here for you. So where can we find your music?
Well, it's at the moment you can pre-order the album on Bandcamp. So it's just judeperl.bandcamp.com, and it comes out April 7th. And I'll be doing some shows in Melbourne and Sydney and Brisbane. And the Melbourne shows will be a full band at Comedy Festival at Max Watt. So it'll be pretty exciting and
Jude, can I just explain to our listeners, because I'm not going to dwell on it, but COVID's been a shit show for our industry and no one talks about it enough.
Agreed.
Bandcamp is one of the formats that gives most of the money to the artist. So even if you're not familiar with Bandcamp, the reason I assumed Jude's using it is because it's actually ethical. So please go to Bandcamp and order the album and buy tickets for the Comedy Festival and elsewhere.
Thanks.
Because we need
thanks
it.
for mentioning that, Nelly. But, you're absolutely right. Like, Bandcamp is kind of like a bit of a life raft in the music streaming world where, there's like not very much revenue from streaming for artists. So Bandcamp is gives the artist like between 85 and 90% of what you pay goes directly to the artist, which is
you can't pay your rent with clicks.
No.
But you can for
tried.
Bandcamp.
Or flowers.
Or flowers or a meal. Oh, how many times do I get offered to do a gig? We'll give you dinner. I've got dinner at home.
And I'm good. Good. Thank you. So, Jude, tell us, I think I might have missed it. If I missed it, then maybe our audience missed it. But where do we hear you live?
So in Melbourne, April
Festival?
19th. Yeah, Comedy Festival. I'm just doing 1 week of shows with a band at Max Watts. So 6 shows, April 19th to April 24th, and then 1 show in Sydney, May 22nd, and 3 shows in Brisbane.
So we go
May
to the Comedy Festival website in Melbourne and look up Jude Perl, and you can do that at the other festivals. I'm sure you have a website, I'm assuming?
Yeah, just judeperl.com.
Perfect.
Clever. Love it.
Yeah, just look for the photo of me holding the award like this. And
We will.
That's me.
So your song that you're about to sing us, Hamish,
Yeah. Yes.
I think I've had some of them in my life.
Haven't we all?
But tell us about it and take it away.
Sure. Well, it's funny you were talking about school before because I can totally relate to. I used to beg my mum to let me be homeschooled all the time in primary school, but
good. Tell me I'm doing the right thing then, please, because I
absolutely Thank you. I'm very happy that it's happening.
Great.
But school was, of course, like most people, it was just an awkward time, and I just this is a song about when you're just kind of in love with someone from afar and you don't really know how to make it happen, but and that was definitely my high school experience of just being in love with people from afar. So that's what
unrequited love.
That's right. Yeah.
Let's hear it, Jude.
All right, here we go. You and I were in the same English class in 2006, and you would draw pictures of girls' asses. And that's when I knew that you liked girls' asses. You sat there in your plain white t-shirt between Tim and Susan, and I could see your nipples through your t-shirt. I'm only human. How can I resist you? Hamish, oh Hamish McMahon, the way that you'd sit in that chair. Hamish, ooh, your pants were low, I could see your turquoise underwear. Hamish, I'm falling for you and your vain attempts at facial hair. Hamish, oh Hamish McMahon, I liked you because you were there. You play drums and just listen to records. You like Stanley Kubrick and you were always carrying a skateboard, but I never saw you ride it. But I bet you knew lots of sweet tricks. Hamish, oh Hamish McMahon, I think that we've got a shot. Hamish, ooh, you know that it's true, 'cause we both quote Seth Rogen a lot. Same sense of humor. Hamish, yeah, Hamish McMahon, your shark tooth necklace looks hot. Hamish, yeah, Hamish McMahon, why won't you give me a thought? You dropped out of school in year 10. I never saw you again. But 3 weeks ago I was in Mornington, singing at the wedding of your best friend. I saw you sculling to full glasses. Then you stood on the dance floor and waited to grab the bridesmaids' asses. And that's when I knew for sure there wasn't much more to Hamish. Yeah, Hamish McMahon, now I know what happened to you. Hamish, ooh, your fire's undone and your girlfriend is yelling at you. Hamish, he works in real estate now and has 2 kids named Tyler and Moon. Hamish, oh, Hamish McMahon, you're still the McBoy that I knew. Ooh, yeah, 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 Hamish, oh, Hamish, yeah, oh, hey, Hamish, hey, Hamish, oh, that is his name is Hamish, yeah, Hamish McMahon, you're still the McBoy that I knew. Hamish.
Woohoo! Can sing and loved every lyric.
Oh my God. I was saying to Shelley before, Jude, many things that I love and adore about you is that, no disrespect to other colleagues, but there's a lot of musical comedians who actually really can't play or sing.
True.
Jude can play and sing.
What's that high note?
Oh,
I thought my glasses were going to crack.
what's that? And we all, mine was a Shane, won't say the last name.
Oh, yeah,
But,
Leon.
you know, we've all got one.
I think I have a couple.
Well, yeah, I've got more than one.
I was
for sure.
unequated love for sure, Jude. Love that.
Amazing. And please,
thanks
please,
so
please
much.
go and see Jude in the Comedy Festival. And I don't mean this in a kind of negative way, but I noticed I was sitting in the wonderful Selena Jenkins show on the weekend at Chill Out, and there were about 2 men in the audience. And I thought to myself, women go to men's shows. We go to women's shows and men's shows, and it's sometimes the case that men don't go to women's shows. So we have to be doubly vigilant, I think, about going to see women in the comedy festival. I'll definitely be coming to your show, Jude, and I hope all of our listeners and viewers will come too. You're amazing.
Thank you so
much. So good to see you guys. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, you too.
It's wonderful.
Bravo.
Take care. Well, that was beautiful. I loved Jude. Thank you, Nelly.
I love a talented young woman.
I love a talented
with
young
some
woman.
confidence.
And I love lifting them and sharing their story.
Absolutely. Let's go and support her.
Absolutely. So at the start of our show, you asked for some comments. We've had a lot of love for Nicole.
Have we?
A lot of love for Nicole.
Amazing,
She
of course.
is brilliant. And Debbie, we're sorry that
Legend.
you are home with COVID, that you are a twin. So we wish you nothing but health
Take
as well.
care, Debbie.
Yep. And yeah, a lot of love for Nicole and the logistic nightmare. Like Issa said, absolutely a logistic nightmare there.
Oh, with COVID?
With COVID, with the floods.
Oh,
So,
with the floods, absolutely.
You know, if you can donate and you can help, like do what you can. You know, we really need to get behind other Australians here that are really struggling.
And I have heard a couple of the agencies, and I know this happens in bushfires as well, say basically it's really nice of you sending us stuff, but can you please give us some money?
Yep.
Because then we can decide what to buy
100%.
based on what's needed, nappies or formula or bras or whatever it is.
It's everything, isn't it?
It's everything.
It's things you don't even realise you have that you need.
But they don't need 4,000 tins of lentils.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't need that either.
Yeah.
100%. And Simone, good luck to you. She's 42 years old and playing in Masters footy. I love that.
Good on you, Simone.
We're seeing a lot of that. It's not just the
Same.
younger people that are
No.
A lot of older women are going back and playing this sport. So well done. And Katrina, you and I are now best friends over the participation award.
Yeah.
But it's been wonderful talking to you, Nelly. I've absolutely loved
always.
it. We've had some brilliant guests and they've shared some great stories. But you've got some good news before we go. Do share about your book, Sunbrains.
Oh, look, I was a bit excited. I'm not big on awards in general, to be honest, but this one hit me in the feels, as they say. I found out yesterday that my book, Sunbrains, which is called Sunbrains, a book celebrating neurodiversity, which I wrote with my autistic daughter for other autistic kids, has been nominated for the International Outstanding Books on Disability, which is a international volunteer peer committee. And yeah, I was just really chuffed. Really
chuffed for you. Completely deserved the work that you do and the awareness that you raise. You've got a lot to be proud of. So well
thank
done
you,
to
Shelley. I'm right back at you.
Now, Jo will be back with us next week, and we're glad that she is on a road to recovery. Hopefully your week is full of a little glam, maybe a belly laugh.
Yeah.
But hopefully a belly laugh and maybe even a little surprise. You take care.